All right, well, thank you so much for watching this video. My name is Matthew. I am the worship pastor at Anchor Point Church. We use Ableton for our Sunday services. We use it for a lot of different things, but primarily we use it for our Sunday services. We use it for, for our click. We use it for some backing pads. We use it for running MIDI triggers to our Pro Presenter to trigger song lyrics. We have in the past used it to trigger lights during a service, trigger videos for our different computers and stuff like that. So we use Ableton for a lot of different things, and I absolutely love it. I absolutely love everything about Ableton. There's probably a lot of stuff that I don't know still about Ableton, but so far, everything that I've used in it has been near perfect. I haven't had hardly any issues. It rarely shuts down on me, breaks down on me. It rarely cuts out during services. I'm saying we do over 200 services a year, and I've maybe had 2 instances I can think of where Ableton just, glitched or something like that. And a lot of times it's a minor glitch and we just keep rolling and it's fine. So I absolutely swear by this program, love it, love what it does in our ministry, and love what it can do for yours. And so today I'm going to show you how we set up from beginning to end our Sunday services. Now, I do have a Sunday project that I use, and so I will put that file in a Dropbox and put a link out there for that, so you're able to use that. I do not mind you using my template, but I'm going to go ahead and open that. So I keep it here in under worship and Ableton templates and Sunday project. So actually I'm going to have to remove, I think, a bunch of stuff. Let's see. No, I'm not. Great. I've already done it. So I'm going to open up this Sunday project here. And we use Planning Center for our songs, and so everything that we do is in Planning Center. All of our songs are in there, all the tracks for people to practice to, all that stuff. Absolutely love Planning Center as well, what it can do for your ministry. I love what it does for ours. And so we use Planning Center, and I'm just going to leave that open for just a second, just so I can get to it quickly. But here is my Sunday set. This is actually from the previous week. And so you can see we did Echo, Love So Great, Sea of Victory. I'm actually going to delete all this stuff because we are not using any of it. And I'm going to delete all these tempo tracks as well. Now you have to leave one track at the top. It will not let you delete all the tracks, but this is the template that I go with most of the time. You can see I have lots of little markers here. If you know anything about Ableton, you can put locators in to be able to quickly click through each of the songs. But I'm going to go ahead and start where I normally would, and I'm going to go ahead and label the songs that we're playing this week with their keys. And so I'm going to rename this, and let's see, let me just open this real quick. We're doing Zeal in F. We are doing Overcome in D, and we're doing Nothing Else in A. And the only reason I do that is just for my sake, just so I don't have to keep going back and forth. And so now I can close out Planning Center, and we'll go full screen with this. So I know that there's a lot of different ways you can use Ableton. There's probably some Ableton pros out there that might be watching this video, looking back and saying, oh my gosh, Matthew, there are easier ways to do this, or you could do it this way, you could do it that way. I am open to hear your suggestions and your comments. I am a problem solver by nature, and I'm also one of those guys that loves to find the quickest and simplest way to do things. And so if there is a way that I can do it faster or easier or whatever, I'm open to suggestions. But so we will start with the song Zeal in F. And so I'm going to do a different video for this part, but I already have these songs created in their own Ableton projects. Each individual song already has their all their tracks in it. They have all of the cues. So, when it says, chorus or verse or bridge or whatever, it already has all the cues in there, and it already has all the MIDI triggers for song lyrics, for Pro Presenter in it. Now I'm going to do a separate video to show you how to do those from scratch, and how to, make sure tracks are all in there and everything lines up and all that stuff. But for the sake of now, just setting up a Sunday service, I already have these tracks finished. And so I just realized I didn't put else in there, nothing else. However, there are some times where I do need to change parts of songs, or I need to add more MIDI triggers for Pro Presenter, or the Holy Spirit speaking to me in the planning process, and the Holy Spirit saying, hey, we should add another chorus here or something like that. I really do believe that that the Holy Spirit can be just as much a part of the planning process as he can during the service. So I know that there's people that argue with this and say, I believe that, you shouldn't use a click track, and it should be kind of all spontaneous, and you should do whatever the Lord leads you to in the service. And a part of me used to agree with that, and a part of me still does. I still believe in some free worship, prophetic worship. I believe in some of that stuff. But I do believe that there is just as much importance in the planning process. Even Jesus said, who builds a house and doesn't plan for it? Otherwise, he runs out of money and people laugh at him. And he says, what king goes to war and doesn't plan for it, And so if we say that worship is warfare, is spiritual warfare, then, I'm going to go into it with a plan, and I'm going to invite the Holy Spirit in the process, in the planning process of the Sunday services. I believe that God is all knowing, and he knows what's going to happen in the future. He knows what's going to happen on Sunday. He already knows who's going to be there, who needs to hear what. And so my heart behind it is, if I ask God now what needs to happen, I can go ahead and plan for it, so that when Sunday comes, I know, when we do this extra chorus, that was for somebody. The Holy Spirit has already touched me in this and said, hey, you need to do a piece of, Amazing Grace at the end of this song, or whatever. Or you need to have a time at the end of worship where you can just kind of flow. And that's what we're going to do with Nothing Else in this, for this set, because that's something that God's already put on my heart, just kind of being able to flow with Nothing Else. But that's my heart behind it. So I know that there's going to be some pushback, and why we use click and why we use tracks, and you're just doing karaoke. I don't believe any of that. And so let's go ahead and put Zeal in. We're doing Zeal in F, because this Sunday we are doing it female led. Now I have all my tracks under places right here. I've added the folder tracks, and it has every single one of the songs that I've personally put together, with all of the samples that are there, all the stems, all of the cues, all that stuff. And so all you have to do is open this .als file, and we just drag it over into where it says drag files and media here, and devices. Sorry, not media, drag files and devices here. And so you'll see that Zeal gets dropped in. You can see, all of the little pieces of Zeal. Now, it looks a little weird right now because we have not lined up tempo and stuff like that. And what I'm going to do actually is I'm going to delete this first tempo line, since we have tracks in here now. And so what we first need to do is we need to make sure that we have the correct tempo. Now, what I love about Ableton is you can have a track in this view. Now this is the arrangement view. You also have the session view, which is this. So if you're like firing like MIDI sounds from a drum pad or something like that, you can use some of this, but we use the arrangement view because we are arranging, a set. And so we need to make sure that we're setting Zeal to the right tempo, so all the tracks line up, everything lines up correctly. And so the way that we do that is I actually have this tempo track right here. It's just a silent audio clip that I use to lead the rest of the files in here. And so I'm actually going to move this to the right. And so what you have to make sure that you do is you double click on the tempo track, and you need to make sure that down here under sample that it is highlighted as leader and not follower. When it's highlighted as leader, then it uses this BPM, this segment BPM right here, to control all the tracks that are within the parameters of this tempo. Anything that's underneath this tempo track, see how it's kind of shifting it? It's because the other tracks are following it only up to where the tempo track ends. So we're going to make sure that the tempo track is all the way at the end, maybe even a little bit further, just to make sure. And now I know for a fact that all these tracks, in fact, are in sync with the tempo track. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and play this here. You can kind of hear, probably through my microphone here, all of these parts here. And so right now it has every single track in here. And it also has two separate keys here. I have Zeal in C, which is the key that I lead it in. And then I have Zeal in F, which is the key that our other worship leader, our female worship leader, leads it in. And so I'm going to actually remove Zeal in the key of C because I don't need it. And I'm also going to remove click tracks right here because I don't need that either. I use that for when I'm recording for practice playback, because Ableton, as far as I know, doesn't record the click that's coming out of here. And so I just made a simple click track here. That is like just a MIDI, metronome sound. And so anyway, I'm going to remove that too, because I don't need it, because during the set, we'll use the built-in metronome. And so as you can hear, it's all playing through. Now, if I were to see what happens when I take the tempo, it sounds really weird. And so
pre-chorus.
So let's stop that for a second. This right here is the original track, which I'm going to rename OG Audio just for my own sake. And I'm actually going to mute this right now. So whenever this is lit up, that means that the track is activated and you can hear it. If it's not lit up, then that means it's not activated and you cannot hear it. So here are all the tracks for Zeal. Now, we get all of our tracks from multitracks.com. You can sign up there and get tracks for pretty much any song out there. Any worship song out there is most likely going to be on multitracks.com. And if it's on multitracks.com, they have all the loops. Now, some people use other websites out there, but Multitracks is one of my favorites. And so we have a subscription. We get I love the subscription part of it because we get, a certain amount of credits every single month, and they just add up and accumulate over time. So when we add new songs, I usually have enough credits to add a new song. So I love multitracks.com. But so we have all of our tracks for Zeal in here. We even have vocal parts in here. I'm actually going to remove all the vocal parts except for the Vox effects for this song, because whenever you increase the key or decrease the key of a song, a lot of times vocals just sound real goofy. They can sound like chipmunks singing or something like that, or real strange. And so I usually get rid of the vocal tracks. We have enough singers too. We don't really need vocal tracks. I know some churches kind of put if there's like a choir track, they'll kind of put that in there to kind of help, bolster the overall sound a little bit. But in our case for this song, we're not going to have any vocal tracks in here. I will leave the Vox effects on, because a lot of times that's like the that part, and so I'm going to leave that part on. I also leave the guide off. We don't need the guide because I make my own guide within cues. Now, if you want to, you can totally use multitracks.com. Every single song comes with a guide. You can actually see that it has, if I turn this track on and solo it, you can hear
pre-chorus
that it has a guide built in there. I'm not crazy about some of the some of the choices that they use for calling out parts of songs. And so I decided to use my own cues that, I don't know. They just, for me, these cues work out better, and they're MIDI triggered, and I can put them in wherever I want to. So the big part about that is if we don't want to play the song exactly as it's written, or we want to add a new part, I can't really use the built-in guide because it's an audio track, and I would have to like cut and paste, and it's too much. So I'm going to delete the guide. And so, I don't use most of these tracks, but I leave them on because when we get to practice on Thursday night, say for instance, somebody's playing a part slightly wrong, I can say, hey, go, I can ask my drummer, hey, go turn the drums track on and listen to how he plays that fill. I really like it. It works really well with the bass or something like that. And so I will usually leave the rest of these tracks in here just in case we want to, go back and listen. Hey, like, that slide was just a little bit quick or something like that. And so, but I am going to turn synth loop on. I turn effects on. I turn synth bass on. And I have decided that I like these guitars in here for loop. A lot of times if they have like an ethereal background sound, it's less of a guitar, more like a keyboard or a synth sound. A lot of times I'll keep it, or sometimes it's just a guitar part that we can't fill in. I mean, there's 7 guitars in this song. I mean, the Belonging Co. Come on, 7 guitars. Who can replicate that? But so I do leave some of those tracks on. It is helpful that they have uploaded them for us to use. And then of course I turn on all of the keys tracks. All of those are synth parts that we don't have the people on our stage to play those parts. I would love to in the future be able to take some of those away and have a person that plays those keyboard parts. But for now, we really don't even have the stage space for it. And then Vox effects, I'm going to turn that on, and I'll solo that for you so you can hear just. So it's not really somebody singing. So it's more of like a super reverby just sound that kind of helps bolster us singing some of those parts. So I like adding the vocal effects in there. There's a lot of songs that have vocal effects and they sound great. The original recordings of them, these are all original recordings of this song, and so those Vox effects, the people who produced it, it just sounded really, really great. And so I'm going to use those vocal effects. So everything else I have turned off here, but I'm going to leave those tracks in here just for the sake of rehearsal on Thursday night and being able to turn them on if we need to. Then, of course, you'll see up here at the top, what are all these little bars here? So this is the automation. I have a group called automation. And so each one of these things, tempo automator, I have this in here in case we just go, the Holy Spirit speaks and is like, hey, do this other song. And so there's a tempo automator in here. And what I do for that is I allow the drummer to actually hit T on the keyboard, and he will hit T in timing, and it'll actually change the tempo of the click track to whatever we want at that time, and it'll override the tempo of the song. And so if we need to take down all the tracks, and he'll hit the tempo and it'll be like a new song in the middle or something like that. And so that doesn't happen very often, but I do keep it here just in case, because you never know. Pro Presenter, this is all the slide triggers for Pro Presenter. And so I actually have a folder here that has all of these in it. And so all the Pro Presenter cues are here. Mostly I use select playlist, which is going to select the song, and then select slide, which is selecting each slide, individual slide within Pro Presenter. It's really pretty easy to set up. You just drag these slides into your Pro Presenter playlist here, and it will trigger every single slide as you're going along. So this can take some time whenever you're setting up a song to go through and put them in and make sure they're in the right timing. I love this because our timing is never off, so we never have to worry about a slide not getting triggered or being late to trigger. I want people to be able to see the lyrics before we're singing them so they know it's coming up. A lot of people who go to our church may not have heard these songs. They don't listen to these songs regularly. And so I want them to be able to know what those songs, what the lyrics are before we get to them. Lighting, that's if we want to trigger lights in our service. We don't do it often, but for special services, we will. So you do the same thing. You'll put MIDI triggers in there. I'll work with our lighting director. He's super creative, and I will we'll sync them up and make sure that lights are being hit on the perfect beat, and it triggers and everything goes really well. I have a stop track in here for automation. So what I do here is I'll actually create a new MIDI track, and you can have that specific MIDI note trigger anything in Ableton. And so what I'll do is I'll have that specific MIDI note trigger stop, or sometimes I have it trigger, a song. And so I may do that in nothing else, just so you see that. So I'll have like the trigger at the end of, the bridge build. Say at the end of that bridge build, I want to go back to the soft chorus. I can put a MIDI trigger there that will then send it back to soft chorus without having to use loop, because oftentimes I'll use loop in a different section of the song. And so that's super, super helpful. And I will show you how to do that. And so this right here, we have our song set up. Zeal is pretty much ready to go. So if I hit 1,
2,
turn and click on
1, 2, 3, 4.
So you hear everything's on beat, everything sounds good. You can see up here that the tempo is correct. It's 130. Zeal is 130. I name all of my songs that with the key and the tempo, just so I know that where the tempos are. And so we have Zeal. Zeal's good. And just for your knowledge, in case you aren't an avid Ableton user, if you go up to key up here at the top right, you can actually set up any key on your keyboard to trigger anything in Ableton that's lit up here. So of course I had the locators, 1, 2, 3, I can change this to 5, whatever. So, or if I want to change it to A, I can change it to A, whatever it is. So, but anyway, I'm gonna leave it 2 because we trigger our songs 1, 2, 3, 4 on a keyboard. And so it's super helpful to have those keys set up. You can see that I have some other ones mapped out over here. I have some, I have the key C mapped to the metronome. So if I hit C, it turns the metronome on and off. Super helpful in case we get off click or something happens, or we need to turn the click on for some reason because it was off. It's just super easy. Then having the move a mouse over, the drummer can just hit C and it's there. I have a fade out, fade in set to Q and W, just so in case we're off in a song for some reason. Doesn't happen much because we do stick to a click track, but if we're off for any reason using loops, it can get really, really bad really, really quickly. And so the drummer can hit Q and it'll fade out all the tracks slowly, and then we can try to get back on beat, and we'll just finish the song out without tracks, and then he'll just hit W before we get into the next song, and it'll turn all the loops back up. So super helpful there. And then I have R set to loop on and off. So for repeat, this repeat here, R, I just I call it repeat, but it's loop, but it turns off and on that loop. So for instance, if I have a loop going here and it's like a chorus loop, just to have some pads behind our keyboard player, and then we decide to ramp up and go to a bridge or something like that, he can turn loop off by hitting R, and it'll just keep moving into that bridge. Or he can even hit 6 and it'll take us right to that bridge. So I'll get to that in just a little while whenever I go through nothing else and being able to be able to plan out flow. And so if during service we want to go to any of these things, they're there. Drummer can trigger it. We can still have a click track, still have loops. Love this. And so anyway, let's get back to this Zeal at the end. We usually kind of end it on a big note. And so I want to make sure that we plan out the timing of this, because timing is really everything. With transitions and flow, you want the timing to be right. Too much time in between songs can get really, really awkward. Too little time in between songs puts your guitarist and stuff like that in a bad place, especially if they start the song out and they got to get, delay going and stuff like that. So I really, really, really listen in. And I think about things like people applauding, or people finishing out singing a chorus, or I put all those things into consideration whenever I'm listening to this song. And so I'll listen through and imagine myself being on a stage in front of people worshiping, and I'll try to just map out the amount of time I think is feels natural. And so for you may decide that you want more space in between songs to be able to say something or pray, or maybe you read a scripture or whatever. So you may want to extend like the tempo out even further so you have extra time when the song ends, and then your drummer or whoever is triggering your track can just hit 2 whenever you're ready. That's the whole reason we set up those keys, is so that you can just be going in this click at the end of Zeal, and maybe your keyboardist is just kind of flowing with you and you're reading a Bible verse or something like that. And then when you're ready, your drummer hits 2 or whoever, and you're into the next song. But for us, we let song 1 flow directly into song 2. We will for this Sunday in particular. And so let's listen to the end of this. And so I know that we end the song very similarly to them. So if you listen to that ending, okay. And so I think for the sake of this, we might actually start Overcome as soon as we end it. Because sometimes at the end of songs like this, we'll kind of like do a pause, and then we'll all slam in on the 4, or we're all slamming on the 1 or something like that, and let that drag out, and then go into the next song. But I think maybe for this one, we'll put Overcome in here and listen to it. But for this one, let's just start Overcome immediately. And so what I do is I put this locator right where I'm ready to start the next song. I'm going to do it right here at the end. That's the reason I have all these markers in here, so I'm able to see exactly where I'm at in the song. So, like bridge, this whole section here covers bridge, etc. So, so this should end on this locator now. Boom, end. Okay, so I'm going to put Overcome right in this spot. Now, the way that I do it, some people may try to drag Overcome directly into this spot. I don't like doing that because a lot of times the tracks don't line up. This song has 7 guitars, and Overcome might have 3. So there's no way that these tracks are all going to line up. And so I'm going to move Overcome into this drop files and devices here section. So let's go over here and look Overcome, and we'll see. Let's see Overcome. I have it in A, G, D, and 80. We're doing it in D. Because I have one of our other worship leaders who's a female leading this song. So, all right. So I know this started looking really crazy once I dropped it in, but whenever you drop something in, it automatically puts it at the front of the arrangement, at the beginning of the arrangement. And so we're going to have to move all of this over to this 2 section. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on tempo. This tempo track is the first track within Overcome. And so I'm gonna click on tempo here because I know that Zeal track was the last thing from Zeal. And I'm gonna hold down Shift on my keyboard. I'm gonna click past all of the loops out here. This extra space is just, it doesn't really matter. If you wanted to, you could click tempo and try to click this perfectly, but oftentimes you miss all the loops. So I just click past it. So I grab literally everything, and then I'll hit Command X on my keyboard because I'm on a Mac, and I'm going to hit 2 on my keyboard because it's going to take me to this locator 2 for Overcome. Now, if you want to, you can also click on this locator and do the same thing, but I'm going to hit 2 on my keyboard, and you can see how now it's lit up right here. That's where my tracks are going to start now. So I'm going to hit Command V. And now it's going to paste that in the right spot. And so I have all my tracks here. I'm going to do the same thing I did with Zeal. I'm going to get rid of A. I'm going to get rid of G. I'm going to get rid of this click here. I don't need it. Okay, so now I have my tracks here that I'm going to use. I'm actually going to listen back to this again now that I have the tracks in here, and I can hear what it sounds like between this gap here. And so let's go here and we will listen back to this. That sounds pretty good, but let me make sure that my cues are on also. That way I can hear this a little better. So.
One, two, three, four.
That sounds perfect because our drummer will usually shimmer out on the cymbals at the end of Zeal, and he can come right in on Overcome. I think that's a pretty good gap. So I'm going to go with that. And if you want to, you can always use these original tracks. I always put the original tracks in my song so I can listen back to see how, they play it exactly. Because the loops, they don't include like lead vocalists and stuff like that. So what I can do is I can actually put Zeal and Overcome right next to each other in this OG audio track, and I can blend them together with a fade to see what it might sound like in our set. Now, obviously, we're not going to have the audience they have, so the applause, it's not going to be as big and as great. So you have to kind of account for that stuff. But you can kind of hear maybe what it would sound like. And I'm going to solo this track so you can hear it. I think that sounds pretty good. So I'm going to go with that. I'm going to disable my OG audio. And what I usually do is I get rid of, once I move the audio out of these tracks here and put them next to, because I like to have all of the OG audio tracks all in one line so I can mute them all together. I'm going to remove this audio track because it doesn't have anything in it anymore. So there we go. Remove it. And now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to put everything except for the loops in this main line, because I want to have all the tempo tracks in one line. I want to have all the automation in one line, all the cues in one line, and all of the markers in one line. So what I do is I grab tempo just like we did before, click on tempo. I'm going to hold shift on my keyboard. I'm going to click past all of this, but I'm not going to click any of the loops. I'm just going to click tempo and then over the markers here. I'm going to do the same thing, Command X. And you can see how it kind of, messed this up a little bit because the tempo automator track is gone. But once I put it back up here, click up here, I'm going to hit 2. So I know that I'm on the locator. Let's do that again. 2, Command V, boom, there we go. Everything lined back up and we're good to go. I just think it looks nicer having all of those in one section. I'm going to go ahead and remove these because they're empty now. And I usually move OG audio to the bottom. And so now we have our tracks in here perfectly. I'm going to go ahead and play this again.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Perfect. I can hear in my head like the drummer just shimmering out like real heavy and then slamming in on that tom hit. Sounds good to me. Love it. So just really quick, so I can go back, kind of go over what this looks like for some of the tracks and how it pushes audio out, because I know you can't hear it, but I can. All the cues and clickers coming out the left side of my speakers, and then all of the loops are coming out of the right side of my speakers. And so I have this set up particularly because the way that we send audio to our board, we use a PCDI box that splits the audio up, and so it puts everything coming out of left into one channel on our soundboard and everything coming out of the right coming out the right side of the soundboard. So PCDI box, it's a great little splitter. If you wanted to, you could have, if you have a computer that has audio out, maybe you have some kind of interface, USB interface, you can also split audio that way, but we do it just this way. It's easy and simple. So what we do is for cues, everything that's coming out of left is in one here, and that's how Ableton is set up by default. And then everything coming out of 2 is like everything on the right. And so by default, Ableton has these click tracks right here, the metronome coming out of one, and then everything that's set up as set as master here is coming out of two. And so so everything in one coming out of left side, everything in master is coming out of right side. And so that's just a tidbit, so what that looks like, what that sounds like. Down here under master, you can actually set it up so if you want, like, the left side to actually have both click cues and stuff coming out of master. You can set it up as 1/2. It gives you stereo, and then 2 down here. If you do 1/2, like I usually put it as 1/2 while I'm setting things up. That way I hear just full on loops out of both sides of my speakers, and it sounds normal. But then at the end, when I'm done setting up my Ableton, I'll have to change it back to 2, so it's all coming out of right side. And so this right here, this volume right here is your preview and cue volume. This right here is how loud like your metronome and stuff like that is when it's coming out of the audio. And then this right here is just basic track volume. So anyway, going back to the arrangement, I'm actually gonna Overcome sounds a little loud to me. Let me go back and play it. I might have too many tracks. Okay, I have too many tracks enabled. So I don't put drums in here. I don't put bass. So let's go ahead and remove all the tracks I'm not using. For this song, I won't put any guitars in. I won't put any piano. I might leave the Rhodes. Let's see what's playing through Rhodes. Let's solo it. Okay, I'll leave that on because it's not, yeah, over the chorus. Okay, that's good to me. And I'm going to get rid of all of these vocal tracks. And so I'm going to actually delete, let's see what, oh yeah, the vocal tracks on this song are really funny. The background, the vocal effects, a lot of times I'll leave those on, but just so you know, this is what they sound like. The kind of things that people come up with, I'm just amazed by, because you can't really catch it when you're listening to the main song, but it's definitely there. Check this out. Listen to this. This is interesting. The vocal effects for the chorus. He's just saying, oh yeah. But when everything's together, you don't really catch that, but it does add something to the song. I don't know. That's just really, really smart, really intelligent by the producers. The song is Elevation Worship. We love them. Very, very, very incredible musicians, talented producers there. So I'm going to leave that track on just because it's fun and interesting, and I don't know. I just love it. So we're going to look at this and see, okay, now I have all the tracks I want in there. Everything else looks pretty good. The automation is all set up in here. We'll check that. I'll check that usually to make sure everything lines up with our Pro Presenter later. But for now, I think all the cues sound good. I think I may have this right here is the volume for the overall group. I think it may be a little bit too loud, so I'm gonna take that down to 0. Let's listen to the difference between the first song and the second song as far as loudness is concerned. And you can kind of see this little this mixer section here. You can see the volume of your tracks, and then once it hits this little tiny line here, it's usually clipping. And so let's just listen back. Okay, that's some of the heavier parts of that song, and that's not clipping. I like it just below clipping. That way I'm getting enough audio to our soundboard and to our production manager. And so let's listen to this song and see how loud it is. Okay, this is probably the loudest part of the song. It's actually pretty quiet, comparatively. I mean, so I'm actually going to increase the overall volume of this just below clipping. And so that's going to be, let's take it up to 5. The max you can go is 6, but let's take it up to 5, see where it's at. Okay, I'm actually going to remove that loop there. Now, sometimes if you want to leave something like that, that loop in there, sometimes, if you do like that, that second percussionist or something like that maybe your main drummer can't put in there. A lot of times we'll put that in there, and I'll just take the volume down by a little bit so it's not as obvious, that there's not a second drummer. For this case, I think I'm actually going to remove the loop. Yeah, and it's not clipping. And even if it once in a while it clips, it doesn't bother me as much. For some people, they're like sticklers about this, not clipping. But if it's generally the entire song, there's no clipping. If there's a single note in the entire song that maybe clips, I'm okay with that. So as long as it's not like sounding overdriven or something like that, usually you can pick that out pretty quickly. But for the most part, I keep all the volumes below that clipping line so that it's all giving my soundboard every song between songs. They're not having to dynamically increase and decrease volume as much. That way everything sounds pretty even. And I just want to make things as simple as I can for our volunteers. And so I'll make sure on my end that is not quite clipping. So let's move on to the third song. I have the outro here. So sometimes I'll take out the outro. Maybe we'll just end on the chorus. Sometimes I'll add another chorus in there. Maybe I want a quiet chorus. Maybe we want an extra bridge in there. Really just depends on what the Holy Spirit's speaking to you. But most of the time with Overcome, the way that song is laid out, it doesn't feel like it's too long. It doesn't feel like it's too short. It feels pretty good. And so it has that kind of quieter chorus, kind of builds back up into the heavier chorus, and then it has like the outro, which is just a half chorus instrumental. Okay, so for this song, we actually do a pause and then we slam in on the 4. And so for this song, it'd be a G. I'm okay with that going from this song to the next. I think there's enough gap between this song into Nothing Else that the key difference shouldn't sound too bad. Some occasionally, our keyboardist or our music director will borrow chords or use some passing chords to move us from song to song. But in this case, I think it'll be okay because I think the drummer will wash it out pretty well with drums. And so let's listen to the end of this one more time and see where we want to put the next song to trigger in. Pause, slam in, and we'll let it ring out. 1, 2. Okay, so that sounds good to me. I'm going to put it about right here. Let's try it again. I'm going to pretend here that I'm the music director too, where I'm telling people, in the worship team, what we want to do here at the end, and as far as like atmosphere coming into the next song. So I'm listening to it in my head while it's going. So end of the song, end, slam in on 4, and then 1, 2. Okay, so I think that sounds pretty good as a good place for this. Once we get the song in here, or maybe once we get to rehearsal, we decide, hey, we need a little bit more time in between that. It doesn't quite sound right between key to key. We need a little bit more time. Or, hey, I really do want to say something here. Sometimes we'll move it at rehearsal night. So, whatever I plan out, on when I'm making the arrangement for Sunday, isn't like the end all be all, like this is it and this is what we're going with. Like, I'm really open to on Thursday nights. Let's try to figure out if this needs to be moved out a little bit more, or we should really be washing this key out a little bit more, or hey, let's add another measure so we can kind of move from key to key or whatnot. But in this case, we'll just leave it here for the sake of simplicity. I'm going to put Nothing Else in here. And I think Nothing Else may not have automation because it's a new song for us, and we have not set up all of the triggers in there. But let's see. All right, so I know I didn't set up triggers in there because there's a lot of it isn't lined up very well. And so I'm going to minimize all these. And we're gonna do the same thing we did before. I'm gonna click on tempo, and I'm gonna hit shift and click past everything, Command X, 3, Command V, and it's gonna put it right there under the 3 locator. And then I'm gonna do the same thing as before. I'm have to, now you can't make sure that this is leader until you've moved it past the other tempo tracks, because otherwise it's going to try to take over those and mess things up. So I never, because you can see kind of all these tracks are goofy, laid out weird. So at this moment, when I see that, I'm going to go ahead down here and make sure that it is set as the leader. So I'm going to click off of leader and hit that again, and everything should have laid out correctly. It didn't though. So what I can do is I can just drag through all of these parts, and voila, got my entire track put together again. Now I think the reason I did that is because I wanted to go back into chorus or something like that here. So what I'll do is I'll actually just take this to the interlude. You can actually hit shift and drag all of them. I don't know why I was doing them individually. And it looks like these tracks right here need to be done the same. Need to drag over. I can see where I kind of managed this song here, the main song here, and then yeah, I had this set up kind of goofy for a reason, because of the way I wanted the song to lay out on a Sunday. And so I'm going to take these all, to this. Let's zoom in just a little bit more and take them to where I want them. All right. So now I have my song laid out correctly. All the tracks are there. It should sound correct. Yeah. And a lot of these I need to fade. So what I do to fade is I click and drag over the tracks. Command Option F puts the fade exactly in that spot. Let's go over here to where this is. Let's do the same thing. Actually, you may not have to here. Yeah, let's do it anyway. And I'm going to do that with this as well. That's off. Let's see where that drum beat comes in. Here, let's just listen to the main song. Oh, I see. So somehow these tracks got... It's good that this happened, because now I can show you how things need to be fixed when stuff like this happens. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to try to figure out where these little pieces are supposed to come in and adjust them. But let's go back to the first one and make sure that that one's laid out correctly. Okay, I have my interlude there. That sounds correct. Let's go here, end of chorus. Okay, that's where we're coming into the bridge. That one sounded good. And I have all of my tracks enabled here, just so I can hear it all together, just so you know. Okay, so it looks like these tracks, oops, I made it all the way to the end. So it looks like these tracks should be starting right about here, because I can hear that drum beat come in. So let's do this. I'm going to right click, and I'm going to reset the fade here. And I'm going to take all of these tracks back to that point. And let's see. That should allow me to, let's just look and see. Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to move this all the way over to where this bridge starts, because I'm pretty sure that kick comes right in on the one right there. So let's listen to this. Yeah, perfect. And so now I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to do that fade, crossfade, so it should work. There we go. It sounds like bass is off though. Yeah. So all those tracks sound like they might be off by a little bit. Those sound like they should be back here. Very strange. Yep, that sounds right. So let's go back and let's fix these fades again. We want to take all of these tracks and move them back, and let's crossfade them all again. Now let's listen to it. Oh, piano is off too. So that tells me that, but we don't use piano, so I'm actually just gonna not worry about that or any of these tracks. I'm just gonna make sure that keys and all those are on it and sound right. Okay, those are right. All right, I think we're good here. It sounds like everything is pretty spot on. I don't know about choir. Let's just listen to it. Yep, those are good too. So it looks like we got it all fixed. I'm not going to use the drum track or bass, so adjusting those was just a matter of trying to get everything lined up. Same thing. Let's see here at the end. Yeah, it looks like everything's lining up pretty well. Okay, so perfect. So, but I'm only going to use keys. I'm not even going to use choir in this track. So everything should line up perfectly for this. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to move the tempo tracks, everything up to the top. So I'm going to click on tempo, shift, and then click past everything, Command X, go to 3, Command V. So, oh, we have a little issue here. I did not remove click tracks before I did that. There you go. That's why I didn't have all those things lined up. So do the same thing. I removed click tracks, click tempo, hold shift, click past all this, Command X, click up here, go to 3, Command V. Now it's lined up perfectly. So let's listen to the end of Overcome and into Nothing Else, and still let's just make sure that everything sounds right. And I'm going to move this Nothing Else. And for this sake, I have to click through all of these parts to make sure it grabs everything, because I do have cuts in here. Because if you just click one part, it's only going to move that one cut. And so I'm going to click this, click here, and I'm going to move this up to that OG audio track so that I know that it's lined up correctly. Remove this. I'm going to move OG audio to the bottom just because I like the way that it lays out that way. And let's listen to this transition here. And I'm going to kind of talk over it as well, just because I know kind of how it'll sound in our environment. So let's, crossfade it, and let's listen to this outro. To the pause, 1, and then slam in to the 1, 2. Okay.
1, 2, 3, 4. Outro.
Stop. Come in on the 4, and then
1,
start the next song.
2. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Let's listen to the main tracks and see what those sound like. I'm not crazy about the length of that there. It's not bad. I think that you have to kind of have some time there to wash out the energy of the previous song. I might even, once we get to rehearsal, we may decide that we want to add a slow chorus or a quiet chorus from Overcome at the end here, maybe even sing it at a slightly slower tempo to kind of bring it down, the energy down a little bit into Nothing Else, because Overcome is kind of a higher energy song. And so kind of that first real big energy song. Zeal's a little bit more bigger energy, so I put that before Overcome, just in this case in our worship set. And so Overcome is a little bit higher energy, so coming from that into a song like Nothing Else, where it's real quiet, real slow, I may oftentimes put a second chorus or another chorus at the end there that I might decrease the tempo. I might even not even put any loops there. I might have it just a quiet, raw, have the congregation sing this, for the Lord has overcome. And so you could even do a bridge, as a slower bridge, whatever you want to do there. But just for right now, I'm going to leave this as it is. I think that there's enough time here for us to wash out the key. Everybody get ready for this next song. Yeah, I think that's going to work out just for this sake, for this training video. And so I'm going to leave that there. If you were to add maybe a chorus in there, there is a soft chorus right here. So what you could do is you could copy these, these loops. If you wanted those loops, paste them at the end, you can move 3 over as far as you needed to, and add that chorus there at the end. Really easy to do, and then of course you need to you have to slide everything over with 3, but for this sake we will just leave it as is. So at the end of Nothing Else, it goes back into the bridges several times. Now I know that kind of how our congregation works. I think that if we were to go back into bridges here, it may or may not flow very well, just because the song is really long. And so what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to end the song after this chorus here, and I'm going to allow this whole section here be more of a free worship section. And that's where I'll give our pastor the cue to come up and kind of end worship, and so he'll come up, and a lot of times he'll say something kind of that's with the song, or he'll bring up scripture that goes along with the song. And a lot of times we'll use that moment there to just allow the presence of God to stir us, to rise our faith, to help our hope rise, just to create that atmosphere in the room. And then from there, the worship team, we kind of just follow each other, follow the Spirit, follow the pastor, and our music director will lead us. Kind of, if the worship leader's thinking one thing, he'll give the music director a cue saying, hey, let's go to a chorus, let's go to a bridge, all this stuff. And so usually in that moment, I'll have just a basic pad. The keyboardist will set up a basic pad to play there, and we'll just do a loop in Ableton. And that way we can kind of do whatever we want to there at the end. And then I'll set up triggers if we want to go back into a chorus, or if we want to go back into a bridge and start building it back up. So let's go in here and let's put our loop that I want to set up. And right now it's called bridge loop. I'm just going to call it loop. Because it's not going to be any particular, segment of the song's loop. I don't think. I may change my mind on that, but for now, we'll do it this way. And what I want to do is I actually want to put the end at the end of this chorus. I want to end on this chorus. So I'm actually going to remove these tracks here, because I can always take the bridge from previously and use those to build. But you know what? Actually, I think I'm gonna keep the ending piece here. because I might use that ending piece to help maybe put at the end of this chorus here to help kind of drag that out and make it sound more natural of an ending. So I'm actually going to move those over and keep those. Now, as you saw, it actually, when it was all together here, if you highlight an area and then click and drag it, it automatically cuts. Really cool. Love that. I'm going to remove all of this, and I'm going to remove these. And I'm going to drag these out just slightly. I'm going to see what it sounds like, because I might be able to just do a fade out here and allow it to, fade into nothing. So let's see what it sounds like here. All right, so if I were to fade out from the beginning of that, let's see what that sounds like. So I know that our music director most likely will continue playing the chorus. And the great thing about this song is I'm pretty sure that I'm pretty sure that it goes to the 4 there. And so what we'll do is let's fade out this entire piece here. And I'm going to have the loop start once the fade ends, because obviously if we have the loop over this section here, it'll keep looping that fade out. And I don't want that, because that'll sound really, really strange. Let me just show you kind of what I'm talking about. If I do a fade out and it gets to the end of the loop, it's going to do this. There's still stuff happening there under that. So I'm going to make sure that that doesn't carry out over that loop. I just want it to loop, past this where it's fading out. I don't want it to keep looping back to, if it's cutting out and then it goes back to, I don't want to do that. That sounds weird. So I'm going to put the loop here, and that way it's going to just loop this silent section here. Let's get rid of this track here and all that stuff too. And so right over this part, I would, our music director would be kind of leading us. I'm going to take these cues back as well. And I'm actually going to tell it, let's see. So I have these MIDI cues in here.
Bridge. Build it up.
Obviously, I don't want to do that. I want to end the song here. So I'm actually going to take these cues back. And I'm going to make sure that this cue right here does not say bridge. I need it to end right there. And so I'm going to go down here. I have my MIDI section here. I can see all of the different parts. And over on the left side of here, you can see all the different options for, for this. And so I'm going to go back to where this is at. Okay, this is showing me where this is ending. Bridge is here. I'm actually going to find end. Looks like this is it right here. I'm going to remove bridge by double clicking on it. So now,
End.
Now we know that that's the part where we're going to be ending in the song, which sounds great. I love it. And so if you want to listen to kind of what it would sound like, you can always. Oh, he goes into the bridge there. What does it sound like if we do this? I think that there's like kind of a gap here, if I'm not mistaken. Let's take this volume way down because it's a little loud. Let's see. Oh, wait, he goes back in. Oh, that's right. I took... Okay, I forgot I did this because he doesn't have this chorus here in the original song. I put a chorus there. So I took the chorus from the beginning and moved it over here. So that's why he's going back into a verse there. Not natural. But anyway, I'm pretty sure that'll sound fine. And so I'm going to go with it. I like the way that sounds. I like doing a chorus there at the end. caught up in your presence, you know, and we'll end at the end of that chorus, and we'll have just a basic loop come in right here. So let that carry out. Like it. Sounds natural. We'll actually have another loop going on right here. Anyway, the keyboardist triggers a drone pad that's just in this key. And so it'll be playing. So you probably won't even really hear that fade out much. And so this is perfect. I love having this loop here. And so I'm going to get rid of all of these markers here. And I do have my ending here in case I want to use it. I don't think I'm going to need it. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of those as well. So here we go. We have, you know, if nothing else, that's funny, nothing else, name of the song. If nothing else, I could have this as my set, have this loop when we get done at the end of worship, you know, drummer, whoever stops the click track, we're good to go, and walk off the stage. But I like to be able to flow. I love flow. I love being able to go back into things. The pastor says, hey, let's play that chorus one more time, or hey, let's do that bridge one more time. What I like to do is I like to add those pieces of the song at the end here. And so our drummer actually, he's the one that triggers all the songs. And so if we're about to go into a soft chorus, he can hit 5 right on the one of that chorus, and it will take us into that whole section. I like the way we can just kind of flow with that. He also, though, he has a drum pad that has MIDI trigger set up on it. So if he's in the middle of playing something, he can just reach over, you know, hit the MIDI trigger on the drum pad that will trigger to each one of these. He has a separate pad set up for each one of these little locators. And so what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to add a soft chorus in here. I think that it's possible that we could go back into a soft chorus. I think it's possible that we may go back into some bridges. And then I will always have a click only section here at the very end for, like, we usually come back up at the end of the service. So a lot of times I will put just a click only track for our drummer to trigger. And at the end of service, anything can happen. If we just have a click here, that's one of the main reasons why I have that tempo automator there. You know, if we do an altar call and I want to play, I don't know, Healer or something like that, you know, we can turn the click off and really we could just go complete, you know, free worship at that moment. Or, you know, he could tap in, you know, the tempo of that song real easily. And so in this instance, I'm going to set this up so that we have a soft chorus that we could trigger if we would like to, and I'm going to have bridge builds. And so let's go over here and let's grab everything. Let's see which chorus we want to use. We want to use the original one as a soft chorus. Yeah, I like the other one, the original one, as a soft chorus to use. And so what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to click this section here, and I'm going to highlight everything underneath chorus there. I'm going to hit copy, Command C. Now, I do believe that if you were to click on chorus, you could do something like a cut time. But the problem with that is it would cut all this time out. So anyway, I usually just take that section and I'll just, you know, move it over here. So I'm going to take that and I'm going to click here under where it's nothing else. Okay, so paste it over here. Actually, I was having to expand this in order to copy and paste it over. I just expanded it and I drug over all these individual tracks like this, and I pasted it over here. So now if we're in this loop, click track going, and then if we want to go to the chorus, caught up in your presence. So at your feet, I'm caught up in this holy moment. Yeah, I like that. Okay, so The issue that we run into here, though, is that if we have nothing going on, and then all of a sudden we caught up in your, it's going from nothing to something, you know, and it can sound very goofy. So what you could do is you could do a slow fade over this. Now, this is the whole reason why we have a drone pad at the keyboard going, because if we were to just, you know, slowly fade this in, it would maybe cause a distraction. Everything that we do, we want to try to be distraction free. So I don't want to do like a cut right into music. I don't want to, you know, that's going to cause a distraction. Somebody's going to pick up on that, maybe, you know, cut their flow of worship. And so my goal is to have everything to be as distraction free as possible. I think God is honored in excellence. And so I'm going to put a fade in here. The great thing about having that drone pad at the keyboard is it'll basically make it seem seamless. And so I'm going to put the fade here. So Command Option F, that way it fades in. Let's see what that sounds like. So 1, 2, caught up in your presence. I just wanna sit here at your feet. I'm caught up in this holy moment. Man, that was perfect. I love the way that flowed in. It'll be seamless. It's not just cutting in, causing distraction. Love it. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to allow that soft chorus to play through, and I'm going to actually add a repeat at the end of this. Now, here's where things can get really, really tricky, because if you add a repeat MIDI, you're going to hear audio cut and come back in. So let me show you what I'm talking about. If I were to just go to automation here, and I'm gonna use this stop track. It's called a stop track. I don't know why I named it that. Naming conventions aren't always the best, as I'm sure you probably know as a worship leader. But I'm actually going to use that track for a MIDI cue to cue this song again, and so, or this part again for the soft chorus. And so Command Shift M, that gives me a MIDI section that I can write within. And I don't think I don't have a MIDI note set for anything but stop. And so I'm going to use C3. Boom, I have a note there. I might drag it out just a little bit so that I have, you know, a larger section of it. I don't really need that much. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that I have MIDI set to trigger itself within Ableton. So if I open this stop track, I got to make sure that my IAC driver is set for Ableton self cue. Now, I had to create that in order for this to work. And so I'm going to show you just really quickly how I did that. Within Audio Midi Setup, every Mac comes with Audio Midi Setup built into it. So I'm going to open Audio Midi Setup. And then on the newer OSs, you got to do this differently. Show MIDI Studio, click here on IAC driver. This may not be enabled. You may have to click devices online in order to turn it on. And then under ports, I actually named this Ableton Self Cue. I need to name different things, you know, differently, so I know if I just have 3 IAC drivers, who knows which one is which. And so I named this one Ableton Self Cue because I know that this one in particular is going to be triggering itself. And so I named it Ableton Self Cue. Once you have that in there and you made sure that that device is online, it'll actually show up in Ableton. And so in Ableton, we're going to go over to Live, Preferences, and we're going to go to MIDI. Let's see, where did MIDI go? MIDI right here. And now you'll see IAC driver Ableton Self Cue is in here as input and output. These are the settings you need. You need remote to be on and track to be on in order for it to self cue itself. Okay. And so once I have this set up, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to expand this. And what I'll do is I'm going to hit play just before we get to that MIDI cue. And while it is getting close to that MIDI cue, I'm just going to spam click on 5 right here to make sure that it's setting C3 as a MIDI cue for this locator. So here we go. Oops. You gotta click MIDI first. Click MIDI at the very top right to turn on MIDI recording. And we're going to click play here and wait for it to get close to this. And as it's kind of moving the locator over that, I'm going to be clicking on 5 here to get it to trigger this locator. So here we go. There we go. So now we see note C3, locator 5, soft chorus. So now what's going to happen is if I unclick on MIDI so that, we're not still trying to, trigger things or record MIDI in here. Now, if I let it play, it will automatically go back to locator 5. So let's play this. See how I did that? Now, this could be a potential issue because you're going from audio to cutting audio. Don't want that. Now, the thing about Ableton is you will have a little bit of a glitch when you MIDI trigger 5, so don't let that startle you. You'll kind of hear, if you can hear the click track through my microphone here, you have a little bit of a glitch, but it's pretty much on, so your band, your worship team should be able to stay on beat, even though there's a little bit of a glitch there. Just let them know what's happening, what's going on. But I don't like how it cuts audio out completely and then comes back in. So I'm actually going to move. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to copy this section here and paste it so there's 2, and I'm going to have a locator there for the secondary soft chorus. So I'm going to move this one out of the way. I'm going to add a new locator here. Right click, add locator. This is actually going to have to be 6. And I'm going to call it soft chorus 2. Okay. And I'm going to move this MIDI trigger back so that it triggers on top of this locator, because I don't want there to be a fade in this next time it goes through. Okay. So I'm going to copy all of this and I'm going to paste it right here. And I'm going to get rid of all of the fades. So let's reset fades on all of these. And so now, let's do this. I'm going to have to rename these. Let's do 7 and 8. Let's redo our keys. So I'll need this one to be 6. Yes. This one to be 7. Yes. This one to be 8. Okay. And then I'm also going to have to remap my MIDI to go back to this one now, because right now it's still set to trigger 5. So I need it set to trigger 6. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to MIDI, turn MIDI record on. I'm going to hit play, and then I'm just going to click on 6 as fast as I can. So here we go. So it says, do you want to replace the previous mapping? I want to say yes. I don't want it to go back to 5. I want it to go back to 6. So I'm going to unclick MIDI. Let's see what this sounds like now. Okay, doesn't sound bad, but I still have an issue with it because it's going from, if you listen, still a glitch there. It doesn't sound that great. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm actually going to create a new audio track with this audio. I'm going to add reverb to just this section so that it flows on top of each other. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this whole nothing else track, Command C, Command V, and I'm going to remove everything out of this whole section. And I'm going to remove all the audio from this section because I only want the reverb to be on this second track. Now, I have an Ableton effects made for this particular thing, but you can use any built-in reverb. They all sound great. You can use any of the audio effects, the built-in reverb, and add it to this. So for instance, if I wanted to use, just a basic, medium hall reverb, I can click on .adv file, click over here, boom, I have my medium hall reverb in here. So now you can hear that let me turn the click off so you can hear it better. Now there's no gap. It doesn't sound glitchy anymore. Let me turn this up so you can hear a little bit better. That's way, way, way better. Love it. Love it. Okay, so I'm going to actually just continue to use that same reverb there. Sometimes I will use my Ableton effects because I have some other things I can do with it. I can increase or decrease the filter. I can decrease the reverb decay and amount here rather than this one over here. There's different effects you can use, all that stuff. You can even add shimmer. So if you want some more shimmer on some higher end shimmer, you can use that. But I'm just going to use the built-in medium hall reverb. I think that sounds super good. And so I'm going to use that. And so if nothing else, hey, we're set up here. We can go into a soft chorus. It fades it in. Caught up in your presence. I just want to sit here at your feet. Caught up in this holy. Yeah. And so we can just keep repeating through this over and over again until we're ready to exit the stage. And only the band's going to hear that glitch for the click. But other than that, you are set up for success here, my friend. And so soft chorus 2 triggers itself, sounds great. You can use that for anything. I mean, if you want to just loop, these bridges over and over again, you can just, however you want to do that. But I want to add some bridges in here. And I really like the building bridges. Not 100% sure that we will use them, but I like having them set up just in case we do want to use them. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to just make sure that I create a locator after that MIDI trigger so that I know for a fact it's not going to start going to these bridges without my permission. And so I'm literally going to have to hit 7 to get over to this part. The other thing is that I love about the reverb is if you're in the middle of this and you need to go to click only real quick, say for instance, you're going to, hey, the pastor calls the verse. I want to go to the verse. I'm going to hit 8. The reverb still trails off and it doesn't just cut immediately and sound real goofy. It doesn't just cut all the audio. And I might even, increase the decay time a little bit more so that if you're in that and you go to the 8, there's a little bit of a trail off for the reverb. So I might do something like that just to increase the decay time. Maybe not as much as that was. No need for 8 seconds of delay or decay, but so I'm going to add the bridges in here now. So what we'll do is I actually want these bridges to be full audio. And the reason is I already have audio going on over here in these soft choruses that are looping. And so since there's already audio going on, I don't need to fade the audio in like I do on this soft chorus here. So I'm going to take these bridges. I don't know that we would actually do this many of them either. Let's just listen in to see what we get here. It's mostly just pads anyway, so.
Bridge.
I just want you, nothing else.
Bridge. Build it up.
So there are other parts in here. I don't think that we'll build it up completely like this. I think it'll be fine if we do like maybe 4 of these bridges. If we want to build it up, if you want to, you can add every single one of them in here. And the cool thing is if you add the reverb on it, you can cut wherever you want to and end the song and boom, you're good to go. So you know what? I think actually, let's do this. Let's just use all of it. Let's just take every single bit of this just so we have them all, because we can always just cut out into, into nothing with a reverb. And so let's do a Command C And let's come over here and let's paste it into here. Actually, I'm going to use that same reverb stuff. And so let's paste it into here, so that it's got that reverb on it. And I'm actually going to take all of this stuff too and put it over here. And I'm even going to take the cues. I'm going to paste those over here too under cues, just so I know.
Bridge.
Cool. So now I have my entirety of that whole section. And I think I might actually want to have that interlude in there too, just so I can use it as like a slow fade out. And so let's put that in there. Oops. Let's zoom in here. I think I may have not cut that correctly. Let's go back over here and look and just listen in. Let's drag these pieces over. It's got the fade in there. Let's see what it sounds like. Not crazy about it. So let's just do let's extend this out. What does it sound like? And let's, this whole thing is a breakdown. So what I might do is actually,
Interlude.
I'm going to use that whole section there to fade out, because that's a breakdown anyway. They're breaking down after the bridge.
Interlude.
Let's cut this back. I don't want to say interlude there. Boom. And then what we'll do is we'll set up click only here. Now the cool thing is, if we wanted to, we can set that same MIDI trigger. I could take this MIDI trigger here and I could copy it and I could paste it at the end of this, say for instance at the end of this breakdown, and go right into that chorus over there. So check this out.
Bring it down.
That may not sound quite right, but you can put it to wherever you need it. Chorus 2. And it sounds pretty good. You could even do it, further back. Of course, it's fading out here. Remember that. So but hey, that extra reverb on there made it sound good. You could even do it right there. So, but what I'm going to do for us in this case is there's enough pad on the keyboard that I'm going to allow them to take over at that point. So if we decide to go back into all these bridges, so say for instance, we're in these soft chorus, bridge 2, 3, 4. It sounds pretty natural. Bridge 2, 3, 4. Yeah, I like it. Cool. I think we're all finished up with nothing else there, and then the end of worship. Now you could even do some of this stuff if you wanted to in the middle of your worship set. So say between overcome, like we talked about before, say you wanted to do another chorus, you could always put a chorus in there, add a little bit of reverb so it doesn't sound weird whenever you're cutting in and out of it, and have that in between overcome or nothing else. Or maybe for instance you just want a soft chorus playing before the song actually comes in, and you want that little looper going on, while you pray, or while you read scripture before you go into nothing else. Maybe you want to read a psalm there or something like that. You could totally add that in there, and then have your person that's triggering your Ableton, hit 3 to go into the song. And man, there's so much you can do with Ableton, and having some of these MIDI triggers in here, having the repeat here, so many things you can do. So this set is pretty much finished. I'm going to I'm going to close this up now. I know that I said earlier that this automation here isn't correct. I will finish that up, but I don't want that to be in this video. I want that to be in the video where I'm establishing songs, because that's where I normally set that up. I set up the Pro Presenter cues there for the songs, and so I normally don't have to do them at this point. I will have to do them for this week. And I'll go through and add all those cues, but I want to show you that in the other video, because I'm going to go through each individual the MIDI cues and show you how that gets set up with Pro Presenter, how to connect Pro Presenter to your Ableton and fire those lyrics on time, so you never have to worry about volunteers being out of time. The thing I love about that is my volunteers that run Pro Presenter can actually take this time to worship. They're here pretty much all morning, and I want them to be able to take that time to worship and not only be nervous and anxious about whether they're hitting slides on time during worship, but they can actually take that time to worship. So this is all set up. There's one more thing that I need to do right now, and I need to save this and make sure that I collect everything and put it in this folder, because what I actually do is I take this Ableton and I transfer it to another computer that is in our drum cage. And so what you have to do is, as of right now, it is actually pulling all of these loop tracks from different places in my computer. It's pulling them all from different folders. None of these are self-contained currently. So if I were to transfer this Ableton file over to another computer, it would not have any of these tracks in there, because right now it's just linking them. It doesn't actually have them contained within the Ableton folder. And I know that because if I were to open my Ableton folder, if I go to Worship, Sunday Project, all the tracks would be here under multi-tracks, but there's nothing there. And so what you have to do is in Ableton, you go to File, and you're going to choose Collect All and Save. And what it does is, it even says it right down here in the bottom left, it collects all external media, saves it all into files referenced by the current set, including those from the library. So it's going to collect everything, and I want it to include everything. Hit OK. And you'll see now it's going to start populating all of those tracks into this folder. And now I can move this Sunday Project folder. Now I can't just move this. I can't just move the single, the single file. I have to move the entire project, because the project is what contains all of the tracks, samples, presets, everything. So the project is what I'm going to have to save. And you can tell because it has this little folder here to tell you. So if I were to just move the sunday.als file, that will not work. I need everything. So the project here is what has to be moved over to the other computer. Then you can open up that file and you will have everything that you need. The reverb will still be there. All of your MIDI triggers will still be there. You may have to go to your cues and make sure that cues are set up as one. You have to go, since we didn't save it this way, you have to go and make sure that your output, your right output, your master output is set to 2. So it's everything going to the right. And you also may have to make sure that your automation on your other computer, depending on how you set up your IAC driver, if you name it exactly the same as it is on the computer that you are writing your files in, like for instance, on the computer that we use, I named it exactly this, Ableton Self Cue, and I don't have to worry about making sure that it's set. But you may have to, on the computer you move everything to, make sure that you change it to the correct IAC driver so it's on the right one for triggering itself. So man, I hope this was helpful to you. I hope that it encourages you. I hope that it has given you some ideas of what you can do in Ableton, and being able to kind of it's funny how planning some of this stuff out makes me feel more free in worship. When I have a click track, when I have loops, I know I can fall back on something. I just feel so much more free in worship, and I know that we can kind of do really whatever we want to now, since I have all of this in here. And so I hope this was helpful to you. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask. Like I said, I don't know everything about Ableton, but I do know how it's used in our environment, how to get certain things set up. If you have issues getting MIDI triggers set up, I know that when I first started, I had a lot of issue trying to get the IAC driver to connect correctly, to try to get the Pro Presenter cues to connect correctly with our Pro Presenter computer. I had a lot of issues issues there that I had to work out and I figured out. And so I understand if there's some things that maybe I didn't go over that are unclear. Just feel free to message me, send me an email, and I would love to help out in any way that I can. I hope this, like I said, I hope this blesses you, and I hope that your worship stays incredible and grows and allows you to create a distraction-free environment for people to worship and experience the presence of God. I'll talk to you again soon.